Hello everyone and welcome back to F1 2019. I hope everybody is healthy and safe watching, and thank you for coming back as we get ready to head to Italy. Now, fresh off of the summer break here, we got a win out in Belgium, and now we are headed to another very high-speed track, the Italian circuit of Monza. So it's going to be another one where we're going to rip all the downforce off and just kind of hang on throughout the corners. So we're going to pop ahead and take a look. We don't have any finished developments. We are going to have some rain in the first half of this race here. Dry qualifying, so it's really going to be an interesting kind of wet-dry balance. Do we want to give ourselves a little extra downforce during the early stages of the race to handle the rain, or do we want to set ourselves up for the best run at the tail end of the race? So it's definitely going to be another matter of watching those tire temperatures as we transition through. It's only supposed to be light rain, it looks like, so probably going to be starting on the intermediates and not the full wets, but we are going to have to just kind of keep an eye out on when it hits that transition point. So taking a peek into the R&D system, looks like we've got one in progress in the chassis development and one in progress in engine development, but nothing new coming this week. Singapore and Russia are the next arrivals. And now, as we've done pretty much every season, coming to Monza, which is, you know, full throttle for a huge portion of the lap, we're going to go ahead and slap on some fresh engine components here. So use those ones we've been saving up for a while, get those fresh ones on, and then we'll run those for the next few races. And now as we head down the last kind of stretch of the season, we're going to have to be kind of carefully balancing out engine wear. We're going to try and not take any penalties the rest of the way here. But we are nearly done. Throw on the newest control electronics. Now that last set we had on is not in too bad of shape, so we will be able to go back onto that final set pretty recently. But there are a few that are absolutely toasted at this point. So let's head off to qualifying with that new fresh engine in.
The pit lane will be open shortly, which means it's nearly time for qualifying for the Italian Grand Prix here in Monza. When it comes to getting lap time out of this circuit, it's traditionally been about maximising top speed. Do you simply remove as much downforce as possible, hang on into the corners and max out down the straights?
Top speed is a key factor for this circuit. Even if you can achieve the same lap time as someone running less wing than you, chances are you'll find overtaking difficult if you have too much drag.
Alright, so here we are roaring down the back straight of the Italian circuit of Monza into the Ascari chicane on our first flying lap around here. Just kind of trying to hang on through that very fast chicane with the lower downforce settings. Looks like Danny Rick is currently at the top of the tables in this early stage of Q1. I would get on the brakes down to fourth gear, try and set ourselves up for a good strong exit on Parabolica. Try and get the throttle down super early, almost to the stage where the back end starts to step out. You can kind of feel it float a little bit. That means you pretty much nailed the throttle. But here we are crossing across the line and ripping down that main straight, 221 miles an hour. A little early on the brakes as we get all the way down to 45 miles an hour. But here we are jumping ahead towards the tail end of the lap. Big run through the second chicane netted us a huge amount of time as we're out at the tail end of the session here on a fresh set of tires. We'd fallen all the way down to P17, but we really didn't put in particularly good laps in our first stint. But now we are out good and early on the throttle for Parabolica, up 8/10 as we're about to rip across the line here. See where we go in Q1. Is it going to be enough to get us to Q2? P5, so quite easily into Q2. And now at this stage, we don't have to worry about in Q2 the getting a lap time in on those medium tires, because it's going to be a wet start of the race, so we're going to be able to have kind of free choice of strategy regardless. So we are first out on the soft tires. We're reusing that final set that we did our last lap on just to set a banker on a slightly worn set of tires and preserve a fresh set to the tail end of the session to try and get ourselves into the top 10 as the track kind of evolves over the course of the session. The later out you're able to go, the more rubber is down on the track and the more grip you get around a lot of these corners. So usually the first lap is just going to be out there as a banker, and then if you get out at the very tail end of the session, then you're really going to get the best track conditions possible. That being said, that is very dependent on the weather cooperating as well. Obviously, if track conditions are getting hotter and hotter, the track is also going to get a little bit more slick as you come through there. So we cross the line, P5 at the moment, 8/10 off of the best lap of Sebastian Vettel at the time. But so here we are out lap 3 on that fresh set of tires. We managed to move ourselves up to P9, and as we have about 2 minutes left in the qualifying session, we're picking up about 2/10 into Ascari here. A little bit of a cut across the curbing there, but we managed to have a good run through the second and third parts of the Ascari chicane. We're picking up great run down the back straight here, up 4/10. So now if we can absolutely nail the run through Parabolica, we should be able to really put ourselves up in a very good spot up the grid. So here we are on the throttle nice and early, almost 6/10 up as we cross the line here. We moved ourselves up into P2, only about a 10th behind Sebastian Vettel there. So we're going to see if we can improve into the first chicane here, but at that point we just kind of slowed up, let the rest of the session finish up, and we managed to finish up in P2. So into the top 10 shootout. Let's see if we can put ourselves into a good spot to start on for the race. Now, we'd used up a lot of tires of the soft tires in Q1 and Q2, so we only had the one set left. So what we did was we set ourselves up to run 2 back-to-back flying laps on these fresher soft tires. P3 at the first time around. We're going to cross the line, a little bit of an improvement. Let's see where that puts us.
Excellent lap. We're really pleased.
And that's going to put us on provisional pole, so no engine penalties or gearbox penalties coming for us. That's going to start us at the front of the grid.
With qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top 3. Oldtimer, Perez and Sebastian Vettel. With qualifying wrapped up, we now have our grid lineup for the big race tomorrow. Be sure to join us then for what will no doubt be a fantastic race.
We're almost 2/10 up on that best lap of Sergio Perez, so our championship rival at this stage, starting right next to us, and Verstappen just a little bit down the field here.
It's race day here in Italy once again. Monza, home to so many records. The smallest winning margin, for example. Do you remember in 1971, Peter Gethin beat Ronnie Peterson to the line by 1/100th of a second. There were 40 overtakes for the lead alone in 1965, and Kimi Raikkonen clocked a record top speed of 230 miles per hour here, just over a decade ago. So there's a lot to live up to then for all of our drivers today. With the rain coming down here at the 3.6-mile Monza circuit, the low drag setups preferred by most teams could cause them some problems in today's Grand Prix. So watch out for cars struggling for grip around Parabolica, the last and most demanding of this track's 11 corners. Joining us today to oversee all the thrills and spills, it's Anthony Davidson. And great to see you. How are you feeling about the race today, and how are the circuit conditions from what you've seen?
Well, it's looking a bit cold out there, if I'm honest. These tyres have quite a narrow operating window in terms of the temperatures they need to extract the best grip. So with a cold track surface, it's going to be harder to keep those temperatures up, which will lead to lower grip and maybe more mistakes.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Oldtimer lines up on pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Vettel, Bottas, Charles Leclerc and Verstappen, Hamilton, Stroll, Weber and Lando Norris, Giovinazzi, Sainz. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Kevin Magnussen and Albon, Gasly, Butler, George Russell and Daniel Ricciardo. Grosjean and Kimi Raikkonen finishes off the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
You've done well to put it on pole, but we've still got work to do. Trying to cover the inside line off the start.
I'll do my best, Jeff, but no guarantees considering A, how we start in the dry, and B, how we usually run in the wet. So double struggle for me here coming into the start of this race. So we're just going to try and extend this first stint on these intermediates basically until the rain stops. I'm going to try and make it a one-stopper and do as much as we can to run. So we're going to just kind of play it by ear. But so here we are on the grid. Perez right next to us as the lights go out. A little bit of a slow getaway. Lots of wheel spin. You see very little throttle input as the back end is dancing all around. The amount of little adjustments I'm having to make with the steering wheel. It's really tough, but we are in the middle, 3 wide as we get into the braking zone for turn 1. Perez swings a little wide as Bottas swings around the outside. Vettel is just kind of barging into the side of us, and we lost a couple of positions off of the start. Not super surprising for me there, but with this wet track, it's going to be definitely a struggle to kind of keep up with this group in front. So we're going to go and utilize the slipstream, and it's tough to find your braking points in the spray of the cars in front of you. So here we are into Lesmo 1 and then out into Lesmo 2 to get down the back straight heading into the Ascari chicane. We've got the 2 cars kind of running away in front of us here, and it's really just going to be kind of a matter of trying to turn in the best lap times we can and defend from Vettel, who's got a great exit and is in the slipstream coming down this back run. He's going to have a kind of a little bit of a look to the inside. Not quite close enough as we get into the braking zone there, but we've run a little bit deep into the first turn. Well, we managed to kind of get the back end sorted out and keep Vettel behind us, but it's definitely hard for us in the wet to get the power down and keep those rear tires from spinning up. And obviously, the more you spin up those rear tires, the more heat they generate. The more heat they generate, the more they get closer to overheating. And when they overheat, they give you less grip, they spin more, and it's just this absolutely vicious cycle. So it's very important to be very careful coming out of Parabolica to get onto the main straight and not spin those rear tires up too much. But already cars in front of us really building a bit of a gap as we head into the braking zones for the first chicane again. And then, of course, in the rainy situations, no DRS, so not really too much of a worry of Vettel just kind of sailing past us using the DRS, but he does tend to get a pretty good exit out of some of these slower chicanes and is definitely picking the slipstream up. And we are running that lower downforce setup. We decided to kind of maximize for qualifying and also for the tail end of the race is what I decided to set up for, but it is definitely hurting me through some of these mid and high speed corners in the wet here as we don't have quite the force of the car pressing down on the track and keeping that tires gripped up. But you see this big train forming behind us as Vettel is tucked right in. We're going to go ahead and turn up everything we can. It looks like we're going to make him try and go around the outside as we get on the brakes late, kind of dive to the inside of turn 1, force him to kind of pull up alongside us, but he's got a good run, but he has to kind of back out as we get through the third part of the Ascari chicane. Is not able to quite make the move, but that train is getting longer and longer behind us, and with our current pace on these tires, we are going to be in a bit of trouble soon. Looks like Leclerc is trying to make his way down the inside of his teammate there. It looks like he seems to have gotten that job pretty well done. So we're going to be under attack from yet another Ferrari as we come out of Parabolica and hit the main straight. We are starting to see a little bit of a dry line form as we made a couple of laps through this GP so far. We're going to start to get a little bit more grip on line and try and keep the tires cooled as that dry lines forms more and more. The light rain conditions are not a big issue for us. I mean, it is continuing to keep the track a little wet. We aren't certainly not quite yet to the point where we're going to need to start thinking about those dry tires. But here we are getting into the brakes, turn 2. But you can see by our time splits, we're getting a little bit faster and faster each lap, even though we're still losing the cars in front of us just from the dry line kind of starting to form. But got a little bit wide into the first Lesmo corner. But if we can settle up and have a good run out of the second Lesmo, we should be just fine to defend our position from the other Ferrari there. A little bit of wheel spin getting on the throttle, coming down the back straight. We're going to move to the inside. Not quite. Thought about moving to the inside to defend the position, but Leclerc didn't have quite a full enough run to take that spot from us, so we slot in front before we hit the braking zone and run through this car. But big oversteer problem out onto the grass, just barely keep the car pointing the right direction. Huge misstep there, and other cars are going sailing past us. We dropped 3 positions due to that error, and all that wheel spin is definitely going to be heating up those rear tires. You can see even more sliding as we try and get on the throttle through Parabolica. That's going to put us into trouble with the Red Bull. I believe that's Max Verstappen right behind us as well. So not quite out of this championship race yet. If he can have some reliability for the rest of the season, he might be in better shape. But a good run on the slipstream there. Not quite close enough as we hit the braking zone. but we are closing right back up to this group in front of us, so we just kind of need to try and keep pace with the group here. We've obviously lost the leaders at this stage. They're way out ahead, but now we're just kind of hoping that the rain sticks around a little bit longer. So we're jumping to lap 6 here. Still P6 with Lucas Weber behind us trying to make a move. He's made his way past our team, or our championship rival there, Max Verstappen. They've made the way through. But Hamilton and Vettel are scrapping a little bit. Ooh, safety car is out. What is the move going to be made? Another Red Bull out of the race. Giovinazzi is out. So taking a look at the potential for a strategy change, we're not going to do it. Some other cars are probably going to dive in, get a fresh set of inters, but I want to stay on this current set of tires. So all the cars in front of us, nobody really made the move. We're jumping ahead a couple of laps as we get ready to get back on. So we have saved some fuel, which is good, and that's also allowed us to catch up to this group ahead of us. So the top pack is all together now, and now it's just a matter of whenever they hit the throttle, trying to get that traction down as much as possible. And they're going to do it kind of midway through Parabolica, so it's going to be tough because we're going to be turning and accelerating. And there we go. Bottas is on the throttle. We just got to try and give it as much as we can without spinning up too much. All right, we're full throttle now. Good slipstream run on Vettel here. Crossing the start-finish line. We're going to dive to the inside. Everything's turned up. He's got some slipstream. He's working off of Hamilton. It's a little tough for us to really finish the overtake, but we're going to go ahead and lunge it up the inside. Fairly safe on the brakes. Leave him some space on the inside of that corner there. He still kind of swings wide due to the lack of the grip, but we managed to make up a position on the restart there. So thankfully we got a good exit out of Parabolica there and a good run with slipstream down to get ourselves back up to P4. Now some cars behind us did take another set of intermediate tires, so when the track does go dry, they will be making another stop. And depending on how long the rain goes, this group in front of us, we may see some of the cars come in for a pit stop. But a little bit of an error trying to make a move on Hamilton as he was slowed up into the braking zone. But we have to kind of back out of it, just kind of keep our front wing nice and clear. Now, as we have done in a lot of the other wet races, you'll notice we're able to run in that max out electrical deployment mode because we're spending so much time at partial throttle that we're really regenning a lot and a lot of time under braking, so we aren't full throttle and burning that electrical energy quite so aggressively as we would on a dry track. So we're just going to kind of keep that into its maximum run, and we are just going to try and save up some of this extra fuel for the later stages of the race. Once it dries out, I mean, obviously we put the car on pole, so we know it's quick on a dry track. It's just a matter of staying alive. See a couple of cars diving into the pit lanes, come in to grab a second set of inters. We just got to kind of keep the car in contention until we hit that dry part of the race, and then we should have a very good car to make a run at the tail end of the race for another potential race win. I mean, we're right here with the lead group. We already picked up a win last week in Belgium as we get a little more wheel spin as we get to Curva Grande there. And one thing that was really tough to kind of balance is as the track got drier and drier, how much these normal just like high-speed flat-out corners, obviously Curva Grande is normally totally flat out the whole way through. In the wet, not quite all the way out there. But you see lap 10, the rain has now stopped. And the track is actually drying up pretty quickly, so they want a new pit strategy. They're thinking of putting us onto the soft tires and doing a second, like a two-stopper, but with the amount of tire life that we had earlier on, I think we're going to go on to the mediums and try and run to the end of the race, as these inners are pretty well worn out, but really is tough for the cars that pitted last lap to grab their fresh set of inters. It's really going to put them behind the 8 ball. Now, I think some of those cars might have gone onto a dry tire, got on a little early, but the rain was already starting to ease up by then. We're about to be under attack from one of the McLarens, but not quite close enough, and we're not worried if he gets by us because we just need to be able to get back to the inside and get to the pit lane cleanly. It's like pretty much all the other leaders are diving in for their stops, so we're all going onto dry tires at pretty much the same time. Now, are the other cars going to take what our engineer suggested, go for that two-stop strategy, go soft, or are they going to get on the mediums and go to the end of the race? as we were going down the pit lane and we see them going by, we see a lot of the red wall tires. So it looks like everybody's going on to softs, and that is going to be a huge win for us in that regard, because we don't even necessarily have to get past these guys. We just have to stay within about 15 seconds of them, because that's going to allow us to overtake them under the pit stop. So it looks like, yes, those cars that dove in on the last lap are in fact diving in for the dry compounds, and they actually managed to make some good lap times. We've fallen all the way back to 9th after the pit cycle. So we probably could have come in a lap earlier on to get onto the dry tires, but I was more worried about just trying to do what the leaders do, essentially, as far as pit stop timing. If we were hanging right with them, then we just kind of wanted to stick with them in that regard. But now basically all these cars out in front of us have to make another stop before we hit the end of the race. It would really be a big stretch for them to run the softs all the way to the end. Now, it is going to be tough. We are going to have to work our way through this bit of field while they have life, and you can see just the amount of pace that they have. Kind of looking around the outside into the braking zone. We're going to go ahead and cover that off. And we just have to make a couple of laps as the track finally gets fully dry and keep these medium tires in contention with these softs. And eventually we'll hit that switchover point where our mediums will be faster than their softs. And then they're also going to have to make that extra pit stop in front of us. So we are going to make up some good positions off of pit strategy, essentially. So luckily, with them making that change to a 2-stop really puts us in the driver's seat. We don't necessarily have to make a ton of overtakes. Now, if they had gone on to the 1-stopper just like us, then we would have been in a lot of trouble, because we would have been fighting through the field, and obviously the cars that made the stop about a lap earlier had really good runs. But here we are coming out of the first chicane, almost going 3 wide, tucked up behind this Alfa Romeo, running side by side with this Renault. We're just going to kind of try and see if we can have a look. Swinging to the outside, switching to the inside, dive up the inside. Can we get Lucas side by side through the second part of the chicane? Drag racing down to Lesmo 1. Are we going to try and hang it out around the outside? Can we have enough grip? He's still side by side. Hit the braking zone for Lesmo 2. Get all the way out onto the Astro. Easy on the throttle to try and not overrun and spin out tires. But here we are. It's just an absolute drag race down the straight. But we are set up for this high-speed straight line with that low downforce setup. And we turned everything up. We've been using some of that extra fuel, extra energy deployment, and that's going to let us run down that straight and hold off. I'm just kind of taking a peek at the life of the tires there, making sure we're not overheating, as we did have some lockups into the Lesmo area, but pretty good run, and now we are sitting P8. So hop ahead now, lap 16, about 10, 11 laps to go here. And we are really reeling in this group in front of us. Only a half second back of Vettel, Hamilton, and Gasly, this huge gaggle of cars. We've got a great run coming out of Ascari here. See if we can make a move. They're 3 in a line on the inside. We're going to have a kind of a look to the outside. But man, a late move by Hamilton covers us off, and we're 3 wide into the braking zones. Files down to 2x2 into Parabolica. We had a really good run down that back straight, but that really aggressive move to the outside by Hamilton really slowed us up, so we weren't able to make a lot of ground in that regard. But we do have DRS open, managed to get by the Ferrari. Now it's just kind of trying to find our way into a braking zone. Can we make a run? We're tight up against the back of Lewis Hamilton here. Nothing really doing into the braking zone of the first chicane. Now we are full throttle onto Curva Grande. Can we make a run coming out of that corner, utilizing the slipstream on Lewis Hamilton? Can we get on the brakes nice and late? Not in a position to make a move, but can we get a good run here? Just kind of settle down, let the tires relax a little bit as we really are pushing the cars, but those softs are definitely falling off in front of us. And the more overtakes we can make on track, the more clear air we have to run in while these other cars are making their pit stops up ahead of us. They've got a fair gap. Once we clear this little group, it'll put us into roughly the top 3, P4, so we'll be close, but you can see there's quite a few cars well out ahead. But again, these guys making it, going through Ascari side by side, that's going to allow us to get a really good run down this back straight. We're already past Pierre Gasly, and we've got tremendous overspeed coming on. Lewis Hamilton covers off the inside. into the braking zone of Parabolica, and now we just have to hang it out, try and survive. He's trying to nudge us wider and wider, but we are going to keep the DRS by staying behind him. So once that rear wing opens up, now you'll see our overspeed kind of kick in, and that's going to allow us to get well and truly past him as we hit the braking zone. But man, he's very late on the brakes into turn 1, rumbles over the curbs and kind of forces us wide. We're going to go ahead and put him a little bit on the curbs into the acceleration zone, but that late lunge allows him to maintain that position. And now we've got the fast charging Sergio Perez right behind us. We've got a good slipstream through Curva Grande. We're going to have a good look down the inside of the second chicane here and just kind of run over the curb there. No corner cut, just kind of taking what Lewis Hamilton gives us as he was holding that line pretty aggressively. But here we are jumping ahead, lap 19, a couple more laps ahead. We are into P3 now, and there goes the leaders pitting in. So now 7 laps left to go in this race. We've got Hamilton behind us, who is going to make another stop, and we've got clear air to run in. So it's just a matter of turning in as good a lap times as we can to open that gap up as much as we can, because they are going onto the soft tire to finish the race off, and that's going to allow them to run up behind us. So jumping ahead, lap 23 now, you see a 13.4 second gap to the next car, and the other McLaren stranded on the side here, Carlos Sainz on the exit of Parabolica, but he's in a nice clear area. No safety car is going to be required to recover that car. So that was one thing I was really hoping wasn't going to happen when that yellow flag came out for him, was that he got peeled off into a good safe area to recover that car. Because if safety car came out, then we would be in a lot of trouble, because everybody would be on fresher soft tires behind us and in DRS range again. But Norris is starting to reel us in just a little bit.
Norris is behind you. Our gap behind is 13.4 seconds. They're on old softs. Their tyres are 5 laps old. The time last lap was a 1:22.
They're running 22.3s. Our best lap was a 22.1, and we're running, let's see, on the next split, still 13.3 there, but we're running a couple of tenths off of our best lap. So he is reeling us in a little bit. Our tires are starting to wear down. But jumping right to the end of the race here, starting the final lap here, Norris still behind, 12 seconds back. So really hasn't been reeling us in too much as we've hit the final stages of the race there. Leclerc setting the fastest lap of the race on those soft tires and light fuel load. But we are pretty clear, so it's just a matter, don't make any mistakes, and we should have no problem getting to the line nice and comfortably. But another thing to take a look up in the top left there, Norris is second now, just under 12 seconds back, but George Russell sitting P3, another 6 seconds back of him. And it looks like on the minimap there's a little bit of daylight between him and the Ferrari following, so it is possible that George Russell is going to get his first podium of his career and our first double podium for Williams here. So definitely helping out the Constructors' Championship, and we're going to go ahead and now with this huge gap, you see me turning the fuel mix down to lean, turning the ERS down, just kind of not over-revving the engine through the last few corners here, just kind of save a % or 2 here and there on engine wear as we are trying to make stuff work for the end of the season. But the checkered flag is out, and we cross the line with another win.
Absolutely awesome. Just amazing. Well done.
It's been coming for a while, this one. What an excellent win for Williams. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Without a doubt, the safety car changed everything today. The key to their success was keeping calm and reacting to the situation quickly. We've seen teams in the past throw away wins because they were too hesitant, but here they were decisive, and that's allowed them to take the advantage.
Williams have put in an incredible performance out on the track today. I'm glad all the hard work of theirs has finally paid off. So, let's review the drivers' standings. Oldtimer takes over the lead of the Drivers' Championship. Let's focus on the driver of the day. Anthony Davidson, who do you pick?
But there's no question in my mind, it has to go to George Russell. What a performance. He's got every right to be proud of what he accomplished out there today.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Williams continue to push their lead at the top of the table. There was also a strong showing from the Mercedes team today as they make their way up the standings. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
A very well-deserved driver of the day for George Russell, storming up through the field in order to get onto the podium. And it definitely, for us, it was, like they were saying, that decisive pit stop strategy. I stuck it in my mind that I'm not coming in for tires until the rain is done and we're getting onto those dries. So even with that safety car, it's very tempting to go and get another set of tires, get something a little fresher, but we didn't. Now, we also finished the race with a 5-second penalty, speeding entering the pit lane at one time. So not particularly great for us. Oh, look thrilled. Yeah, I couldn't do it without the great team behind me. I mean, it's great for the team to have a double podium.
About the collisions?
I mean, not really. It's in the rain, no comment. There's no rain. It's a rainy race.
Devin did much better in today's race than he did in qualifying. Were you expecting that?
Oh yeah, most definitely expecting that. I mean, you can never really count him out, and I just let my team keep me updated on where he's at.
Did you feel comfortable in the wet weather today?
I mean, not really. I'm not a big fan of the rain. You just gotta go with the tests every once in a while.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Claire.
Great work this weekend. It was fantastic to see you up on that podium.
Hey, my boy sitting across from me deserves some respect for that podium too. From 17th onto the podium, what a stellar race for George Russell. A huge contribution to the team's points as well. So definitely a big fan of what happened over the course of this Monza race. And, the car's got great straight line speed. So it definitely showed up here in Monza, which is the place to do it for sure. So we're sitting on just shy of 2,000 R&D points. So we should have a good opportunity to spend some of those. And again, we're going to have kind of delayed gratification because we don't have any minor upgrades to have that are going to be done in a week. So we are going to have to certainly wait around for those to get done. So I'm going to take a look and see. We're going to go with an aero development, increase the DRS slot gap. So we're going to have a little bit more benefit as we have that open DRS. Really, we're running out of ways with our engine development to have a little extra oomph in top line speed, because we can basically run the electrical deployment in higher modes now pretty much throughout the entire race. So we don't have that extra gear to really give it. So having that little extra bit of drag reduction, having that bigger slot gap, should allow us to make some overtakes in the straight lines a little bit better over the closing stages of the season. But a very good race for us and the team this weekend with that double podium finish, and coming first is definitely helpful to our championship hopes. So another win, another quick track was great, but we are headed out next to Singapore, which is a tough track. Lots of corners, very technical city circuit. So we'll see what we can do there. Good chance that we see a hit to our championship lead as we run through Singapore. But again, we have tracks that we perform well out in Mexico and USA coming out, tracks we've got wins at in the past. So as we close the season, I'm feeling in a pretty good spot at getting our first Drivers' Championship. But I will catch you guys next time as we head to the night race of Singapore. Thank y'all, and peace.